Hi, watch the story to the end and subscribe and leave a comment. It's important to me. Enjoy the story. They say your instincts are rarely wrong. I used to roll my eyes at that kind of thing. Chalk it up to romanticized nonsense people say after the fact, when the damage is already done and all they've got left is a bruised ego and a dramatic narrative. But I get it now, because when your world is about to shift beneath your feet, something inside you always knows. Maybe not the details, but the undercurrent. The quiet tension. The hairline crack you keep pretending isn't there. I don't know exactly when it started with Emma. Maybe it wasn't a single moment. Maybe it was a series of little ones. A glance held too long with someone else. A laugh that didn't reach her eyes when she was with me. The way she began pulling her phone closer to her chest when a notification buzzed. Innocuous things. First, anyway. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for 1. Our apartment was small but full of memories. Bad paint jobs we swore we'd fix, mismatched mugs we collected from thrift stores, a shared Spotify playlist that had somehow become our life's soundtrack. We were comfortable, maybe too comfortable. She used to joke that we'd already become one of those old married couples who finish each other's sentences and bicker over grocery lists. I used to think that was a good thing, but the last couple of months something had shifted. I could feel it. Her hugs got shorter. She stopped talking to me about her day the way she used to, and when she did, her voice had this careful, edited quality, like she was curating the version of her day she thought I'd be okay with. I'd ask her how work was, and she'd shrug. Fine. No details. And then, out of nowhere, bursts of enthusiasm for things she hadn't cared about before. New colleagues I'd never heard of, late meetings, impromptu team outings. And still, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I chalked it up to work stress or maybe a rut we were in. It happens, right? Life gets busy. People drift and come back. I didn't want to be that guy, the insecure one who starts snooping or makes accusations without evidence. I kept telling myself that trust means choosing not to feed the fear. Until that night. It was a Thursday. I'd gotten home before her, made a frozen pizza I knew she liked, and sat through a mindless sitcom while waiting for her text. When it came, it was short, casual. Hey babe, can you pick me up in like an hour? Just a work thing at a coworker's lake house. Nothing wild. A little smiley face at the end. Like reassurance in emoji form. What she didn't know, what I hadn't planned if I'm being honest, was that I was already nearby. Not because I'd meant to spy or catch her doing anything. I told myself I was just out for a drive to clear my head. That's what I told myself anyway. But somehow, the car had ended up heading toward that lake road she'd mentioned in passing. I parked about a block away. The house was one of those big, modern builds. Floor-to-ceiling windows, all lit up, music floating out onto the night air. I stayed in the shadows, feeling ridiculous but unable to drive away. I told myself I'd leave in 5 minutes. Then 5 became 10. I leaned against a tree, just barely able to see the back patio. Groups of people mingled, red cups in hand, their laughter blending into the music. I didn't see her at first. Then I heard her voice. It carried lightly through an open window, and my chest tightened on instinct. I wasn't trying to listen. I swear I wasn't. But the window was open and she was just there. Her voice was light, playful in a way I hadn't heard in a while. He's just, I don't know, safe, I guess. Like, I know he'd never leave me. He's solid, reliable. But sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for it to feel like more than that. Another voice, male, chuckled. Deep, smooth. I couldn't see him from where I stood, but I imagined someone taller than me. Smarter, or maybe just newer. Emma kept talking, her voice almost affectionate. But not about me. I mean, I love him, I think. But sometimes it feels like I'm with him more out of comfort than passion. You know? There was a pause, then a response too low to make out. Her laugh followed, soft and int asterisk mate. My stomach dropped. I felt it physically, like gravity had just shifted inside my ribcage. She hadn't said anything explosive. No confessions of cheating, no moans of guilt. Just a quiet truth, handed over so casually, so freely, that it hit harder than any scream ever could. She didn't see me as her partner. I was her backup plan, the safe option, the guy you keep around when you're not ready to be alone. but not enough to be chosen first. I backed away from the window like it had burned me. I couldn't even feel my legs. My hands were clammy. For a second, I thought I might throw up. The worst part was, I wasn't even angry. Not yet. Just hollow. Like the framework of the life I thought we had was suddenly exposed for what it was. Flimsy, hollow. A set piece held together by habit and hope. I walked slowly back to my car and got inside. Sat there, engine off, staring at the dashboard like it held answers. The hour she asked for came and went. My phone buzzed once, twice. I didn't look at it. Somewhere down the road, people were still laughing. She was probably still in there, wrapped in someone else's attention, believing she had time. Believing I would show up at the end of the night like always, car warm, seat reclined, ready to take her home. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't the same man who had driven up that road. And I wasn't going to be the man who picked her up. I didn't drive home. Couldn't. I just sat there, parked in a strip of gravel near the treeline, engine off, phone dark in my lap. My hands hovered over the steering wheel like they didn't know what they were supposed to do anymore. The silence felt louder than anything I'd heard all night. I could still hear her voice echoing in my head, clear as a bell, ringing with that awful, casual tone. Safe, fallback, comfortable. Like I was a pair of old shoes she hadn't thrown out yet. It wasn't even what she said that hit the hardest. It was how she said it. Like it wasn't meant to be cruel. Like she didn't even think I'd ever hear it. There was something about that kind of honesty, the kind people save for when they think no one's listening, that cuts deeper than anything said in a fight. She wasn't trying to hurt me. That's what made it worse. She didn't care enough to think she might. I sat in that car for maybe 20 minutes. Or an hour. Couldn't really tell. Just replaying her words over and over again until they didn't even sound like English anymore. My phone buzzed again. Another text. Probably her checking in, expecting me to be where I always was, on call, ready to serve. I didn't open it. I couldn't bring myself to read her words. Not yet. Not when the version of her I'd just seen didn't match the one I thought I knew. Eventually, I pulled the car out and coasted down the road a bit. My headlights off, engine barely humming. I didn't have a destination in mind, but I didn't want to go far. I parked again, this time behind a little gas station across from the lake, the kind of place with flickering lights and a single pump that probably hadn't worked since the Clinton administration. It was late, so no one was around. Just me, the dull hum of the fluorescent bulbs, and the cold creeping in through the cracked window. I sat back and tried to breathe through the fog in my chest. The more I thought about it, the less sure I was about what I wanted. Did I want revenge? Confrontation? Answers? A part of me was desperate to believe I'd misunderstood, that if I walked in right now and looked her in the eyes, she'd tell me I'd taken it out of context, that she didn't mean it like that. But even that possibility didn't feel like comfort anymore. I didn't want excuses. I wanted clarity. I needed it, actually, needed to see, not just hear, what she was doing when she thought I wasn't around. So I sat there, waiting, watching the lake house through the windshield like it was a theater stage and I had front row seats. Maybe half an hour passed before the front door opened and people started trickling out. Laughter echoed faintly across the water. Heels clicked against the wooden steps. And for a second, it looked like a normal night. Just a group of coworkers having drinks, talking shop, maybe blowing off steam before Friday morning meetings. But Emma wasn't among them. That's what made my stomach twist all over again. Because if she'd just been having a normal night, she'd be walking out with everyone else. Instead, I spotted her a few moments later, still inside, partially visible through the wide glass window. She wasn't alone. There was a man with her, tall, sharp blazer, the kind of posture that says I know I'm being watched and I like it. He stood close, leaning in when she laughed, and even from where I sat, I could tell that laugh wasn't the one she gave me. This one was lighter, unguarded, almost flirtatious. They weren't touching. Not yet. But their bodies were angled in that way you angle yourself when you've already decided you want to be closer. I felt something hot bloom in my chest. Not rage. Not yet. But something dense and simmering. I pulled my phone out and tapped the camera, holding it steady against the steering wheel. I told myself it wasn't out of spite. I wasn't going to blow up her life with it. But if I was going to walk away, I needed to carry something with me. Proof that it wasn't all in my head. That I hadn't just imagined the distance or the shift in her voice or the new perfume she'd started wearing on Wednesdays. I needed something that would shut down the part of me that still wanted to believe this was salvageable. I hit record. Through the screen, I watched her tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, tilt her head toward him like she was inviting him into a secret. His hand ghosted over the small of her back for just a second, long enough to send a jolt through my spine. Her body didn't flinch, didn't move away. She just let it happen, like it was familiar, like it was allowed. They turned and started walking down the hallway, heading toward the back of the house. Somewhere more private, I guessed. I pocketed my phone and got out of the car. My body felt like it was moving without my input, every step slow and quiet as I stuck to the shadows around the side of the property. I didn't know what I was doing exactly. All I knew was that if there was more to see, I had to see it. I couldn't pretend anymore. I'd lived in denial long enough. The air was cold against my face, and the leaves under my shoes sounded way too loud. But I kept going until I found a rear window that wasn't fully covered. Inside, the lights were low, and there they were again, closer now. His hand was on her hip. Hers was resting casually on his chest. Their bodies fit together like this wasn't new, like they'd done this before. I lifted my phone again and hit record. No shouting, no confrontation, just undeniable proof playing out frame by frame. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough to feel my heart finally stop hoping for a different ending. Long enough for the numbness to settle in behind the pain. When I finally walked away, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake, because now I knew. I didn't need to ask. I didn't need to beg for truth. I had it in my pocket. She had asked me to pick her up an hour later, assuming I'd show up like always. That I'd see her smile and forget the cracks in her story. That I'd play my part as the man who waited. But not this time. This time, I saw who she was when she thought I wasn't looking. And I was done pretending not to notice. I drove home without turning the radio on. Just silence and the rhythmic sound of tires on pavement. The world around me slipping by in soft, indistinct blurs. I didn't even really remember the drive itself. I must have hit green lights the whole way, because I don't recall ever stopping. My hands stayed tight around the wheel, knuckles pale from the pressure. I think part of me was afraid that if I loosened up even a little, I'd fall apart right there in the car. By the time I pulled into the parking garage below our apartment, my fingers were trembling. The building looked the same as it always had, but everything felt wrong. My home, the place I had shared with her, now looked unfamiliar, like a set someone had built to resemble our life. I sat there for a minute, staring at the concrete wall in front of me, my brain stuck in some weird limbo between disbelief and a strange kind of clarity. This wasn't a dream. I had the video. I had her words. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined it. I walked into our apartment and the air felt heavier than usual. Her coat was still hanging by the door, her shoes lined up neatly on the rack. Like none of it had happened, like our life hadn't just cracked wide open. I dropped my keys into the bowl on the table, moved to the kitchen, and opened the fridge without really thinking. I stared at the shelves for a while, completely detached from what I was even looking for. Eventually, I just shut it again and leaned against the counter, hands gripping the edge. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. Probably her. I didn't check it. I wasn't ready for whatever excuses or fake apologies were waiting for me in that message. I wasn't even sure I wanted to hear her voice. I just stood there, feeling the quiet of the apartment settle around me like dust. It hit me all at once, the weight of it, the way she had looked at him, the casual way she touched him, how she described me to someone else like I was a backup plan, a placeholder until something more exciting came along. All those nights we spent talking about the future, the way we used to joke about baby names, the mornings she'd wake up and smile at me like I was her whole world. All of it suddenly felt counterfeit, scripted, practiced. I opened my phone and stared at the video for a long time. I watched it again and again. I paused on the exact moment she smiled at him. This soft, quiet smile I hadn't seen from her in months. It wasn't the kind of smile you fake. It was the kind that slips out when you forget you're being watched. That one moment told me more than any text or confession ever could. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel like I could if I wanted to. There was something too raw in me still. Something that hadn't quite decided whether to turn into grief or fury. But I knew I couldn't keep it to myself. Not this time. She'd made a decision when she let things go that far. And I needed to make one of my own. There's a group chat we're both in, friends from college, her coworkers, my coworkers, people who've been in our lives for years. People who knew us as Mark and Emma. The couple who made it through thick and thin. The ones who everyone assumed would be last to fall apart. We were the couple people asked advice from. The ones who always showed up to parties together. The ones who looked solid from the outside. I opened the chat. My fingers hovered over the screen for a second. Then I tapped the clip. Attached the video. No caption. No message. Just the footage. I hit send. For a second, nothing happened. The usual silence of a dead group chat. Then, one by one, the replies started pouring in. Wait. Is this for real? Oh my God. Emma. What the hell? Mark, are you okay? The buzzes didn't stop. Names started leaving the chat. Others kept typing furiously, calling her out. Her friend Jenna sent a string of question marks. Her boss, I realized with a jolt, was in the group too. No one was defending her. No one was stepping in to smooth it over. The whole chat turned into a courtroom, and she was on trial without saying a word. I blocked her number. I didn't want to hear what she had to say. Whatever she would have sent, whatever tears or guilt-ridden texts she had waiting, I didn't need them. I didn't want them. I deleted our messages, wiped the photos from my favorites, and then I logged out of everything. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, done. Not because I was running, but because I didn't want to live in a version of my life where she still had access to me. She didn't just cheat on me. She built a version of me in her mind that was less than what I really was. That hurt more than anything. She'd stripped me down to a backup plan, an option she assumed would always be there because I had always been there. But now, she had to see what it looked like when the person she took for granted stopped waiting. Later that night, I sat on the balcony with a drink in my hand, staring out over the city. The lights blurred a little, but I still didn't cry. I think I was past that now. There was something steadier growing in the space where the pain had lived. A kind of resolve. Maybe even something like freedom. Emma had made her choice. She gambled with what we had. Lied with a straight face. Laughed with someone else while telling me she loved me. And now, she could sit in the silence of what was left. Let her try to explain her way out of this. Let her feel the ground shift under her feet like it had for me. I wasn't going to be there to catch her. Not anymore. The fallout started quicker than I expected. By the next morning, the video had been shared outside the group chat. I didn't do it, I didn't need to. People talk. *TS get passed around. Someone sent it to her HR department, apparently. I found out through a friend of mine who worked in the same company but on a different floor. He called me up before noon, voice low and cautious, like he wasn't sure how to talk to me. Hey, Mark, I saw the video. Look, man, I don't know what to say. Are you okay? That question kept coming up. Are you okay? I never had a good answer for it. I wasn't okay, not really, but I wasn't falling apart either. Something about facing the truth, no matter how painful, had this weird way of giving me balance. It was the not knowing that was *ling me before. The guessing. The second guessing. The way her tone shifted when I asked simple questions. The look she gave me when I hugged her that said, without words, that she'd rather be anywhere else. Now I knew. That clarity was everything. She's done here, my friend said after a pause. Management's pissed. They saw it. People are talking. HR's got it flagged. I heard she was supposed to be on track for that lateral move to the New York office next quarter. That's probably gone now. I didn't say much. Just thanked him and hung up. It wasn't about revenge. I didn't want to ruin her life. I just wanted out of the web she'd spun around me. I wanted people to know the truth, not so they'd hate her, but so I didn't have to keep pretending that I didn't see what I saw. She made her choices in secret, so I made mine in public. I guess that's the part she didn't see coming. I didn't hear from her until later that day. She tried to call from a different number, twice. I ignored both. Then came an email. Just a single line in the subject line. Please. Just 5 minutes. The body of it was longer. Rambling. Apologetic in that way people are when they've been caught, not when they're actually sorry. She said she didn't know what she was doing. That it wasn't real. That I meant more to her than a mistake. That she'd panicked when things got too comfortable. And she didn't know how to deal with stability after growing up around chaos. I didn't reply. I didn't need to hear her rewrite the narrative into something that made her feel better. I didn't want the post-facto justifications that would twist the truth into some emotional accident. What she did wasn't a moment of weakness. It was sustained. It was curated. It was deliberate. And the guy she did it with? Gone. Apparently, he blocked her a few hours after the video went around. That's how it always goes, right? The affair never survives the spotlight. They're built in the dark, made to live in whispers and excuses. The second daylight hits, the illusion shatters. Her friends started to distance themselves too. Not all of them. Some stayed loyal, the ride-or-die types who would believe any story she fed them. But others? The ones who had been there when we first got together, the ones who saw how much I'd invested in her. They reached out to me instead. Quiet messages. Words of support. A couple even admitted they'd had their doubts for a while but didn't want to interfere. Funny how everyone sees the cracks after the wall comes down. I kept my head down for the next couple of days. I worked from home, avoided mutual hangouts, ignored the buzz of my phone. The notifications were relentless at first. Texts from friends, calls from people I hadn't heard from in months, even a few messages from people I barely knew who just wanted to say, "Man, I'm sorry." I appreciated the support, really, but I didn't know what to do with it. Grief is strange. It doesn't follow the rules you think it will. I expected to be angry all the time or broken or curled up on the floor sobbing. But most of the time I just felt quiet, tired, like my body was still processing everything, piece by piece, at a pace I couldn't rush. There were moments, brief, jagged moments, when I'd catch myself looking at something in the apartment and feel like I couldn't breathe. A coffee mug she always used. The pillow she brought back from a weekend trip. Her scarf hanging on the hook by the door. I'd touch those things like they were artifacts from a life that wasn't mine anymore. On the third night, I went to grab food from this little Vietnamese place we used to order from. The guy behind the counter knew us by name. When he saw me walk in alone, he gave me this look. Sympathetic, confused. "She not coming tonight?" he asked with a kind smile. I just shook my head. Guess not. That was it. That was the moment it sank in. She wasn't coming back. And more importantly, I didn't want her to. It was weirdly liberating, that realization. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't asking questions anymore. I wasn't replaying conversations or reanalyzing her expressions or wondering if maybe I was overreacting. I had all the answers I needed. And they weren't pretty, but they were mine. When I got home that night, I started boxing up her stuff. I didn't throw it out. Not yet. I just packed it all carefully. Clothes, toiletries, books, trinkets. Every piece of her that still lingered in my space. I stacked the boxes by the door and wrote her name on the side in sharp black marker. No note. No drama. Just an invitation for her to take her chaos somewhere else. I didn't know when she'd show up. I figured she'd eventually get the message. Turns out I didn't have to wait long. The next evening, around 7, there was a knock at the door. I didn't need to check the peephole. I knew it was her. She was wearing a hoodie and jeans, no makeup, no performative grace. Her eyes were red. Her voice cracked when she said my name. "Mark, can we talk?" I didn't say anything right away. Just stepped aside, letting her see the boxes stacked behind me like a row of gravestones. She swallowed hard. "You packed everything?" I nodded. "You should take it while you still have the chance." She stood there, trying to find the words that would make it all okay. I could see the desperation bubbling beneath her calm exterior. This was the moment she realized she couldn't control the story anymore. "I was stupid," she whispered. "I thought I could handle it, that I could just pretend like it didn't matter. But it mattered. I just didn't know how to sit still with it." I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. Let her spill every last drop of her rehearsed remorse. "I miss you," she said, voice trembling. "And I know I don't deserve anything from you. But please, don't let it end like this." I looked at her for a long time. This woman I had loved, trusted, built a future with. I saw the fear in her eyes now. Not fear of losing me, but fear of being seen for who she really was. The lies, the mask, the cracks. She was standing in front of the wreckage, begging for the illusion to be rebuilt. But I couldn't give that to her. I wouldn't. "You didn't just cheat," I said quietly. "You diminished me. You turned me into a backup plan. I can't come back from that. I don't think you can either." Her face crumpled. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't flinch. "You should go," I said. "And don't come back." She lingered a second longer, then turned toward the boxes. She picked one up slowly, like it weighed more than it should, and walked out the door. I didn't watch her leave. I just closed it behind her and locked it. The apartment felt different after the door shut behind her. Not immediately, not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but gradually, like a window had been opened somewhere, and the stale air we'd been breathing for too long was finally being replaced by something real, clean. I stood in the hallway for a few minutes, just listening to the silence. It wasn't heavy anymore. It didn't feel like waiting. It felt like relief. I didn't move the boxes right away. She still had a few to pick up, and I wasn't going to chase her down. Whatever she left behind would sit there until she decided it mattered enough to retrieve. If she didn't, that was telling in itself. I'd stopped expecting anything from her by then. And honestly, that was the best part of all of this. Finally letting go of the exhausting job of hoping she'd be different. The following days were quiet. I kept busy, went back to work, reconnected with a few old friends I'd been drifting from. Everyone had questions, of course. Some were subtle, some not so much. A couple people tried to offer sympathy, that awkward blend of concern and gossip that never quite lands right. But I didn't need validation from anyone. I had lived it. I had survived it. I didn't need to rehash it over beers or relive every painful detail at brunch. Emma, for the most part, stayed away. She sent one last message a few days later. A voice note. I didn't listen to it. I watched the waveform animate on my screen for a second, then swiped it into the trash. That was the moment I knew I was done, really done. Not angry, not grieving, not numb, just done. Sometimes people ask if I still think about her. The truth? Yeah. Of course I do. You don't build a life with someone, no matter how flawed, and just erase it from your memory. There are mornings when I still catch myself reaching for the second coffee mug. Nights when I roll over and instinctively expect to find her beside me. But those moments pass. They always pass. And each time they do, they come back weaker, smaller, easier to forget. What sticks with me more than anything isn't the betrayal. It's the way I almost let it slide. The way I almost convinced myself to accept a version of love that felt more like endurance than joy. I could have kept pretending, kept swallowing my gut instincts, kept playing the part of the dependable guy who never makes waves. That's what scared me the most. Because when someone cheats on you, it's not just the act that breaks you. It's the realization that you were the only one playing by the rules. That while you were choosing them every day, they were auditioning replacements. That they looked at your loyalty, your softness, your love, and thought, this is fine for now. Emma taught me a lot. Not in the way she probably intended, but she did. She taught me that love isn't about being someone's safe option. It's not about sacrificing pieces of yourself just to keep someone from leaving. Real love shows up, fights, tells the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It doesn't hide behind locked phones and vague answers and nights out that don't add up. And when it's gone, when it's betrayed, stomped on, laughed at, it doesn't beg. It doesn't bargain. It walks away. People still talk about it sometimes. I hear things in passing. Someone saw her out with a new guy. Someone else said she changed jobs, moved across town. I don't keep tabs. I don't want to know who she's become now. That chapter's closed. And not in a bitter, dramatic way. Just in a quiet, final one. Every now and then, I'll see a lake house in a photo or hear someone say the word fallback. And it hits me all over again. Not the pain. The reminder. The proof that I got out when I needed to. That I listened to that voice inside me telling me something wasn't right. That I didn't wait for it to get worse before I finally chose myself. Life's better now. Not perfect, but real. I laugh more. I sleep better. I don't look over my shoulder, wondering if the person beside me is slowly building a life I'm not invited into. I'm present. I'm grounded. And I'm ready. Someday, maybe, for something new. Something honest. But not because I'm trying to fill a void. Because I've finally cleared the space where something good might actually grow. Emma thought I'd wait. That I'd forgive, forget, fold myself back into the role of the guy who never leaves. But I left. First. And I never looked back.